Ella, and I'm very happy to have you here again for our second music lesson. Do you remember where we traveled to last week? We traveled with our musical time machine to Europe, to the medieval period. We learned about music in church and about troubadours, and we even learned how to sing a troubadour song and an Arabic song. What a journey! Today we will travel again with our musical time machine. This time we will travel to another period, the one that came just after the medieval period. But we will stay in Europe, since the beginning of classical music was in Europe. We will also check how music sounded at the same time in a different place. You see, our musical time machine can bring us wherever we want. But first, let's start with our musical game. Do you remember the name of the game we played last time? We played the echo game, and we will continue with this game today. Let me remind you how we play this game. I am going to clap a short rhythm. You need to listen to the rhythm and repeat it after me, exactly like an echo. Don't forget to listen to the next rhythm once you finish clapping the one I just did. I will give you enough time to repeat my rhythm, but then I'm moving to the next one. Ready? Let's start. Very good. To practice this game, you can play it with your family or with your friends. Try and you will see you will get better at it. Are you ready now to travel with our musical time machine? Let's go. The music you can hear behind me was written at the period we are going to discover today. The name of the period is the Renaissance. Actually, it's a French word, renaissance, which means rebirth, like a new birth. When you do something at school and your teacher wants you to do it again, he or she would say, redo it, right? So rebirth is actually being born again. Why rebirth? Because during the medieval period that we discovered last week, there were not many changes, and it lasted for 1,000 years. Can you imagine? 1,000 years of music that stayed quite the same. The Renaissance period, that comes just after the medieval period, was very different. It lasted for 200 years, and it was a time of changes and new ideas, not only in music, but also in everyday life. The church was still very strong, but the music written for it was more interesting. The composers, remember the people that write music, looked for new ways to write, since it was a time of new ideas. One new musical idea was to write the same melody for many voices, but each voice would start at a different moment. We call this imitation, because each voice imitates the one that starts before it. How did they do it? I will show you an example. Listen first, then repeat the melody after me. La 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 la. Repeat it with me. La 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 This is the beginning of a melody written by a composer from the period we're discovering today, the Renaissance period. Let's sing it one more time so you will memorize it well. You will need it for a musical hide and seek that we will play in a second. First note, remember? La 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 la. Now that you know a part of this melody, let's listen to the beginning of this beautiful piece. You will recognize the part we just learned. Remember? La 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 la. If you listen carefully, you will hear the other voices imitating the first voice singing. That means they will sing exactly the same melody as the first voice. Since the melody continues, the other voices that start after the first voice are hard to hear, but they do sing the same melody. Listen carefully and try to figure out how many voices are imitating the first one. So, what do you think? How many voices did you hear? It's not an easy question, but I will help you find the right answer. We will listen again to the beginning of the piece. Only this time you will be able to follow the voices with your eyes as well. The first voice will appear in orange, the second in yellow, the third in blue, and the fourth and last one in purple. Now you already know there are 4 voices. Each voice will continue its melody, so the colors will move as the voices sing. Do you remember the beginning of the melody? La 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 la. Let's look and listen. Beautiful music, don't you think? That was the music inside the church. Outside of the church, many things were happening and new inventions were being developed and created. Remember, it was a time of changes and new ideas. Can you believe that even ice cream was invented at that time? What a wonderful invention! As I said before, many composers tried new ways of writing, and a new style of music was invented, the Madrigal, a special kind of song for a small group of singers. The words could be about love or about nature. What do you think this song is about? Exactly, it is about love. Some composers wrote about nature and tried to imitate the sounds of nature with their music. Let's listen to an example of a madrigal about an insect. I would like you to find out which insect the composer had in mind while writing this madrigal. You will see 4 insects on the screen while listening. A bee, a cricket, a mosquito, and a butterfly. Listen, you can hear its wings flapping. Listen carefully to the beginning of the piece. Which of these insects the composer was trying to imitate?
Il grillo è buon cantore che tiene l'uomo verso.
So, do you know which insect was this piece about? The name of this madrigal is El Grillo, which means the cricket in Italian. So now you know which insect the composer was trying to imitate. The moment where we can really hear the cricket singing is this one. Dale, dale, beve, grillo, grillo, canta, canta, dale, dale, beve, beve, grillo, canta. Did it make you think about the cricket? I hope it did. Another important change at the Renaissance period was the way composers wrote their music on the paper, what we call music notation. This is the way they wrote music during the medieval period. You can see that there are 4 lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is the way composers started to write music in the Renaissance period. Let's count how many lines we see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Many things have changed in the way of writing the notes on those lines since the Renaissance period, but these 5 lines are still used today. Not everywhere music was written on paper as it was in Europe. Let's use our musical time machine to travel to Asia and see how music was over there. We will visit India, where music was not written on 5 lines. In fact, music was not written at all. The way to learn music was to repeat rhythms and melodies that your teacher taught you. And it could take years since this type of music is not easy to learn. Actually, this is still the way it works today. The first thing to do would be to learn the tala, which means literally to clap, but it's also a word to describe rhythm. Let's learn some basic tala, which are rhythm patterns. Do you know what a pattern is? A pattern is something that is organized in a logical way and is repeated. In music, we also have patterns, and the tala is based on patterns. We will take a look at different patterns, and each pattern will be repeated 4 times. The exercise will be to clap only when I say 1. The first pattern will be only the number 1 4 times. Let me show you. It will be 1, 1, 1, 1. Can you do it with me? Ready? And 1, 1, 1, 1. The next pattern will be 1, 2. It will be repeated 4 times, and we're still clapping only on 1. Let me show you. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Do it with me. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The next pattern will be 1, 2, 3. We're still clapping on 1, and it will be repeated 4 times. Do it with me. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Can you guess what is the next pattern? Exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4. We clap on 1, and the pattern will be repeated 4 times. Ready? Let's do it together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you just learn the basic tala. Normally we have to go back and do it from 4 to 3, 2, and 1. You can try to do this by yourself. So let's do all this tala together without stopping. Don't forget that we need to clap only when I say 1, and each pattern is repeated 4 times. Ready? Let's start. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Did you do it correctly? It's really not as easy as it seems, and you might need to practice a bit. Don't forget that Indian musicians learn for years, and this is only a tiny exercise for beginners like us. So you can only imagine how interesting and complicated this music is. To end this lesson, let's listen to an amazing Indian musician that knows all the talas, and believe me, there are a lot of them. You will hear him playing on tabla, with another great musician playing on a santoor. We learned today many new things about the Renaissance period in Europe, the time when people looked for new ways and new ideas. But we need to remember that music existed in other parts of the world too. In Europe, music was written on paper, but in other places, like in India, music was taught from the teacher to the student without using written notes, just by listening and imitating. Next week we will travel again with our musical time machine. We will discover a new period in the history of music, the one that comes after the Renaissance period. Now you already know that the music is going to be different from the one written in the medieval period or in the Renaissance period. I will see you next week for a new musical journey.